I'm Ethan Brown from Alden Central Schools, and I'm with Tim Stanley. It is November 10th, 2016, and we're in Alden Central Schools.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in Buffalo, New York on 2/22/62.
Who are or were your parents, and what are or were their occupations?
My parents are still actually alive, still live in Alden, and my dad worked for General Motors, and my mom has always been a stay-at-home mom.
Who are or were your siblings, name and genders, which, if any, served in the military?
I have two sisters. One lives in Elma, one lives in West Seneca. My younger sister lives in Elma, New York. She did not serve, and my older sister lives in West Seneca, New York, and she did not serve either.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
I just graduated from Alden High School.
In which branch of the military did you serve?
I was 4 years in the active Air Force and 1 year in the Air National Guard.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted.
If you enlisted, why did you choose that specific branch of the military?
I wanted to be in the military, but I felt like the Air Force was the safest place to be, where I could work on planes and get a career and not get out and not really have a job that I wasn't going to be able to keep doing it in. And I still currently work in the airline industry, so it did help me out.
What happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
It's difficult. I went to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. That's where basic training is there. Basic training in Air Force, from what I've heard, is a lot easier than other basic trainings. By the time basic training got done, we had to do 15 push-ups, 15 sit-ups, and run a mile. And yeah, most people can pretty much do that when you're 75 years old, but that was the service I chose, and I'm glad I did it.
Do you recall your instructors? If so, what were they like?
Yeah, my instructors in basic training it was funny, both of my instructors, there was one male and one female, but they were both about 1.5 feet shorter than me, so they were yelling directly into my chest as I was looking over their heads, so it made it a lot easier, not worried about somebody screaming in your face because you couldn't really see them.
Did you receive any specialized training? If so, what was it?
Yes, after I left basic training, I went to my tech school in Chanute Air Force Base, and that's when I learned hydraulics and pneumatics and mechanic on a plane. And like I said, I still work in that industry now. So,
how did you adapt to the military life, including the physical regime, barracks, food, and social life?
Well, again, I was in the Air Force, so food was awesome. I mean, people talk about how terrible the food was. And to tell you the truth, I joined the service because I was a mama's boy and I didn't want to live with my parents the rest of my life. So I figured, you know what, the only thing I got to do is cut the apron strings and get out and get a job. And it worked out well.
Where did you serve?
Bergstrom Air Force Base, Austin, Texas. It's no longer an Air Force base now, it's actually an airport. So, yeah, the base is gone now.
If you served abroad, what are some memories you have of that experience?
I did not.
If you were on the front lines, what combat action did you witness?
I did not.
If you were not on the front lines, what were your duties?
Mine was an aircraft mechanic. The only time I got called up in service is there was a Grenada, but we never really left. We were just on call in case something ever happened.
If you saw combat, how did you feel when witnessing casualties and destruction?
I did not.
What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
I still have a lot of friends of people that I was in the military with, and keep, their families and what they're doing nowadays. Unfortunately, none of them live in the area, so the nice thing is now with Facebook, we can get together on Facebook or Skype and do whatever we want and talk to each other, and and unfortunately it's not face to face.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
Most of it was phone calls, or, you know, when I was in the service, they had a thing they actually called mail. You put a stamp on it, and people like would give us letters, and they would give us letters in the mail, and then we would open them, and then it was like people wrote things in there and sent pictures and stuff. Once in a while, it was like a rock, and they would just punch letters and numbers on a rock and send that out.
What did you do for recreation or when you were off duty?
We're still on there, right? I was an honorable person and did nothing wrong. Just like everybody else, we went out drinking and gambling and having fun. And
Yeah.
Where were you Where were you when the war ended?
I never went to war.
Okay.
Shouldn't this be a green box?
It's recording, I think. Yeah. That's just what it does on Apple.
Yeah, it's recording.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw it running down, but I saw it still red.
The one question doesn't really make sense. How did you return home?
I got out of the military. That's when I got out of the active duty and then went up to Niagara Falls Air Force Base here and did 1 year in the Air National Guard.
How were you received by your family and community?
Good.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
It took a while, but even now, 30 years later, I still can't sleep in. When I was in the military, at 5 o'clock in the morning, you had inspection every morning. So you actually had to shower, wipe your shower down, clean your room, have everything, and standing outside by 5 a.m. So I still now, my wife kills me because 4:30, 5 o'clock, I got to get up and do something, and she doesn't have to do that. But it's nice because now my work, I start at 6 in the morning. So it's still a routine where I get up early, and but yeah, having inspections that early were tough.
Have you remained in contact with or reunited with fellow veterans? If so, who?
No, not really. Never really. I mean, other than something like this, people that I don't know. But one thing about veterans, I always think that the veterans are always a great group of people. They're very giving, and they are, I don't know, just great people to hang around with.
Are you a member of any veterans organizations? If so, which?
I am not.
What have you done since separating from the military?
Again, I still use my career in the Air Force for my full-time job.
How did your wartime experiences affect your life?
Wasn't any.
What are some life lessons you learned from military service?
I think I just mentioned that as far as just being respectful of other people and just making people feel good about themselves and just, living every day to the fullest because you never know.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
I feel good about the military. I've never been involved with war, so I can't really say that. I would imagine people that have seen some of the things people have seen, it's got to be terrible.
Mm-hmm. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view/hear this interview?
Well, I hope we still have a country. Now that we expected our first female president to be elected, I expected that. That didn't happen. We have Donald Trump as president, so hopefully someday somebody hears this. And, hopefully people continue joining the service if they think that, this is a great country and this is what they want to do.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview? If so, what?
No, I think everything was good questions. I think we covered most of it. And does anybody else have any questions that they didn't think was covered?
Give me a second.
Did any of you three ever think about joining the military? I mean, that was really touching today. That was awesome.
Yes, it was very nice.
I really don't, but thank you for your
Yeah,
Sure.
thank
Yeah,
you for
thank
your
you.
service. I really appreciate it.
I have a friend who's in the Marine Corps. She's in Japan right now for
Wow.
for basic training.
I just have a nephew who just got out in the Marines. Now he's going to Arizona State. Yeah, that's a totally different service.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those people are very dedicated, and usually those are the fittest people too.
She's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, my cousin's crazy.
Well, thank you three.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.